So now 11:52, so that means only 8 minutes. That it's less. So we will be able to continue until the 10 minutes, 12:10. So it's okay? Is that okay? Okay, 20 minutes. So there's some question?
Yeah, actually, I take a look at the movie, and then they classify the Black Death as the top #1 natural disaster by, I think it was National Geographic. Among all kinds of the natural disaster, including the earthquake and typhoon, and I think the European community considers the epidemic, also the outbreak of the disease, as a natural disaster, and they were ranked as the Black Death and the bubonic disease as the #1 in terms of the population affected and no way to evacuate, right? So thinking about that, if you can comment about the importance of the controlling the infection, and how can we, because at that period, there are no way how to control it. And then they come into the importance of the hygiene and something. But after 3-4 century later, they medically discovered the cause, right? And at that time, I think no one can understood why the bubonic disease was happening. And then how can, at that moment, the people can overcome the due was impossible, right? So it was almost impossible to overcome the disaster. So can you comment at that point, compared to the other kind of disaster, the impact of the outbreaking?
I think there are a lot of the things which we can still learn from the past experience. During the medieval and the outbreaks of the plague, at that time there was no drug or medicine or the maneuver to prevent or to treat. However, as I mentioned, they knew that there was some way to prevent from the spread by doing something, including quarantine, and by burning the houses of the affected people, or probably the isolation of the patient. I don't know to how extent it was effective, but but the sanitation, as far as I know, the idea that the flea and the rats are actively engaged in the dissemination of the plague was not known until early 90s. They say that in China, when the outbreak took place in Hong Kong, they noticed that the involvement of the flea and the rats. So the people tried to get rid of the flea and the rats, which is supported by the sanitation or the hygiene. And so basically the public health approach, the maintenance of the hygiene and the sanitation, even now is very important. And but I have no particular idea at the present moment to how to prevent the dissemination or outbreaks, because the quarantine may not be so effective. So instead, what we can do is to collect the information, the real-time information from every corner of the world, so that we can get prepared for the possible invasion or incoming of the agent by aircraft. For instance, long time ago, you may know that in the Northern America there is the disease called by the West Nile disease. West Nile disease is an infectious disease which is transmitted by the mosquito. And it was the endemic disease restricted in the some part of relating to the Nile River and in some part of the Africa and the Mediterranean area. It was never observed in the other hemisphere. However, I don't remember exactly the date, but it appeared in the US. And within a month, it spread out of the whole US, including the California, some part of the California. And people believe that that was transmitted for the endemic area by the Boeing 747. And there is some evidence. And even in Japan, after that observation, every air carrier displayed the disinfectant after the passengers left the aircraft to kill the possible passengers of the mosquito from some endemic area. But it indicates that the current transportation system may carry the very important, very essential core of the infection along with the passengers. There is a possibility. So it is quarantine system too. The 100% protection by the quarantine may not be possible, but by collecting the information through the internet or the such kind of the network, we should get prepared for the possible invasion and try to isolate the possible source of the infection as soon as possible. That's what I can say today.
It's okay. So I have one question, Professor Isobe, because disaster is this and star, so that means astronomic aspect is related to astronomical aspect. That concern also with the presentation of the Professor Koyama about 7th century's astrology, astrophysics.
I should say it's a period of transition from the astrology to astronomy.
Astrology. So, how do you think about the observation of sunspot in 17th century? It's high-level studies?
Oh, well, the telescopic observation of the sunspots started by Galileo in 1609. And since then, several distinguished scientists, including Hevelius, which Professor Koyama mentioned, recorded. And I think that Hevelius's record is one of the most qualified records, still being used to reconstruct the past solar activity. And actually, I was also going to ask Professor Koyama, because I was very much excited to see the different reaction of the people and to the very difficult time. And my question to Professor Koyama is that, so on one hand, some people reacted in very violently and consider the bad climate as it's done by witches. And while I don't know if the astronomer, I can't pronounce his name properly, Hevelius, connected the the astronomical phenomenon sunspot to the climate change. So my first question is that whether the Hiberius connected the astronomical phenomena to what is occurring on the Earth, what he thought about that. And then my second question is that, is there any conversation between scientific people like Hiberius and the rest of the society which believe that it's a divine providence? So.
As for the first question, I think that Hiberius did not understand the correlation between the activity of solar spot and the low temperature on the Earth. Only he wanted to study the solar bodies by his telescopes, and he observed such astronomical phenomena by his scientific interest very purely. So he said that he observed astronomical phenomena for his delightfulness and for usefulness to the Polish kingdom. He dedicated his books to the Polish king and queen, and they supported his inquiry financially. So in this sense, he had some contact with the society outside scientists. He had connection with the political authority. But as for the second question, there were rare conversation between a scientist and ordinary people. So it is very important and difficult problem because the Catholic Church had very strong power in the Polish society, and sometimes the discoveries of scientists were contradicted with the teachings of the Catholic Church. So it was very strong tension between them. It made it difficult to make meaningful conversation between them. And from point of view of historians, it is important to know the social impact of, for example, infectious disease, because in the 14th century, there happened the persecution against the Jewish people simultaneously with the expansion of Black Death infections. So it is important to know what was the social and political effects of the natural disaster. Thank you very much.
Yeah, actually, I fully agree with you that point. And actually, your talk and this morning's event reminded me of the discourse, particularly in the internet, after the Fukushima nuclear plant failure. Because as one of the scientists who are involved in public scientific communication and public engagement science a lot, I was kind of involved in a discussion of the people who stress the risk and the danger aspect of the low-level radiation. And on the other hand, some scientists argue that, okay, it's not that dangerous. And there are lots of discourse among that. And being a science, I attended a lot of science cafes and so on to communicate, to facilitate the communication between scientists or experts and the normal people. And we understood that actually it's not only a scientific knowledge which is necessary to the society. Actually, what the people wanted to know is not only a proper scientific knowledge, but also, I mean, they wanted to have a relief. and without the relief of the people, I mean, the society cannot be resilient. So I think that point of view, I mean, the public awareness and the communication between the expert and the people is very much important. And I think we can still learn from history about how these experts and the society communicated. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. We have no time for discussion, but finally,
Izumi.
could you give one brief question? Okay. Hi.
Can I just add one word in terms of the relationship between this and Asta? Because I mentioned about the influenza. Do you know the reason why they call it the influenza? It is based on the influence of the star. Because several hundred years ago in Italy, there was an astrologist who observed the change of the heaven, and he observed that the outbreak of the influenza, I don't know in what name they called at that time, that outbreak of that infectious disease is highly related to the changes in the heaven. So it is under the influence of a star. But it was not employed in Italy, but in the later outbreak which took place in Britain, the scientist introduced the name of the influence of a star and named the disease as influenza. So these are one of the interesting
Yes, thank
stories.
you very much. And very interesting information. So, could you please any brief comment by keynote lectures? Could you give some comment?
Thank you very much to both. The only general comment I can say is that, of course, they add very interesting aspects, particularly about how we communicate some of these disasters. I think maybe can contribute more specifically to the question of what can we do to mitigate in the case of infectious diseases. And I think you're right that basic quarantine methods are lacking. And probably advanced bioengineering, very rapid sequencing, globally deployed, is the way to go forward. And there are big questions about how we're going to finance that. There's a big question of global coordination, though, because because of the highly connected nature, the risk affects developed countries, perhaps even more so because of very dense population areas. But as you say, they are likely to emerge from farms where maybe there is low veterinary support and close interaction between animal vectors and humans. So maybe some kind of financing mechanism to bridge that gap is required, but of course, our world is not very good at deploying these yet. So we need to push on those. And also, we need to think about our medical system and the way it's distributed between private and public organizations, and the relative money spent on developing derivative drugs that affect people who can pay for them, versus creating stockpiles where we can for emerging diseases is also a difficult question for prioritization and financing. If you could comment on any of those?
There are so many other factors which are involved in the final outcome, including the business and the financial problem and the social system. But this may not be the answer, but I feel that the disease are regarded, including the infectious disease, are regarded as the matter of the medical people, and but if even the ordinary people are aware much more the basic mechanism of the disease, including the environmental factors, it will help understanding the whole disease, and also help promoting the preparedness against the possible outbreaks or the new type of the disease. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have no time to continue, so I would like to say only the result of our session. Generally, we already have used the past for the frequency of the disasters and the evidence of big earthquake and tsunami or like that. But we can use the fact in the past for many kind of prediction of disasters, I believe. That is my opinion. So thank you very much for this. Thank you very much. And now we close my session, and 13:15, 1:15 will start again. So please come together. Thank you very much.